Now, I'd like to talk to you all today about shock and awe. Shock and awe. Now, this statement is sometimes used by the military and police, but now this word is used by the military, its meaning is overwhelming, dominance, paralyzing, fight, destroy, and its purpose here is to control the adversary here with the shock of what's happened, what's been done, and how it was done, and to overwhelm them with a fear, to dominate, to paralyze them with the information of what they see in front of them and the information that they find that's before them. Now, when the police detectives talk about a murder and they use this term, they are talking about how the murder site was left, and how this also refers to how the victims of the crime were left, and how this refers here to the bodies and how they were used and were being posed at the crime scene, at the murder scene itself. Now, shock and awe, Wikipedia, its terminology says shock and awe is a tactic based on the use of overwhelming power. Overwhelming power. It's a psychological warfare technique. It's a psychological warfare technique. It's overwhelming power, psychologically. Now, when the murderer, the perpetrator, after he kills, he then poses the bodies. Now, this is what police call shock and awe because of who comes in and finds the bodies. They are then in shock and awe by what they see. So, shock and awe is a terminology here used by the police. In other words, to say that the bodies were posed at the crime scene in a certain way. And how they are posed tells a story about the perpetrator here at the crime scene investigation. So now, this tells us something here. So, now this gives us insight to the perpetrator about the crime and what the crime is about, the murder. Now, with posing of the bodies, a lot of times it's about power and control with posing of the bodies. Now, two reference cases here are the Black Dahlian. And now the Black Dahlian was a 1947 murder. The bodies were posed. The victim was Elizabeth Short. She was 22 years old. You can look that up for reference. Also, Barry and Honey Sherman out of Canada, Toronto, Canada. Now, that murder occurred December 15th, 2017 out of Toronto, Canada. It was a man and wife, and he was into pharmaceuticals, and he had his own company, and you can research that. Now, this is just a couple of cases to give you some references of posing of the bodies, okay, within murders, within crimes that have happened regarding murder. Now, here, I'd like to talk to you about the Delphi case. Now, I want to take you back to April 25th, 2017, a police interview by First Sergeant Hallman. And during this interview, he starts out talking about the Delphi case, and he refers to it as shock and awe. This is how he begins talking about the Delphi case. Shock and awe in the manner of which they were found. So now, Sergeant Hallman's interview here that he gives April 25th, 2017, he starts out and he says it's a total shock and awe to everyone in the community. And then he says it was total chaos here in how everything was going at first until after they got things situated. Now, you can go and see that interview. Incognito Society, she did a video called Fact versus Fiction, and at the 44.16 second mark, she has the interview with Hallman. She shows this interview during her video of Fact versus Fiction. Now, Hallman goes on to talk about it. The crime was total shock and awe to everybody in the community, and shock and awe here. The perpetrator here does this for a purpose. Now, the perpetrator does this to intimidate someone that might find the body, to make them go into shock and awe. And also, they do it to demoralize the victim or victims at the crime scene. Now, John Kelly, the profiler here, he says that posing the body, posed or altering positions, altering the bodies in some way or fashion, and it's meant to really shock the person who finds the body. Now, John Kelly, the profiler, says what posing the body here is. In one of his videos, he talks about this in the Long Island serial killer video, Jane Doe number 6, Valerie Mack, Clues to the Long Island serial killer. And he starts talking about the posing and the shock and awe at 106. The time marker here, 106 to 211 in his video here, marked the Long Island serial killer, Jane Doe number 6. Valerie Mack, Clues to the Long Island serial killer. Now, I've given you a couple of references here of John Kelly profiler talking about the posing of the bodies, and Incognito Society with her Fact versus Fiction video on April 25th, 2017. She shows Hallman's interview here. And here Hallman, over the Delphi case, says shock and awe. This is Hallman, Sergeant Hallman's first description of the Delphi murders in the interview that he gives on April 25th, 2017. And then he states that the murder scene at that point was total chaos, with everybody running around. So here, when Hallman says this, Sergeant Hallman says shock and awe. It was total shock and awe for everyone at the murder site and the community, everybody. It was shock and awe. This tells us something right here. This gives us insight. This tells us that the bodies of the Delphi girls were posed. The bodies were posed at the crime scene. So, and now we know by what, you go back to Carter, listen to what Carter says. Now, in the statement that Carter gave in his press briefing, at the last press briefing that was given for the Delphi case, he says that it's all about power to you. We know it's all about power to you. Okay, and now we know that power, and now we have shock and awe. Now, Carter also said in his last statement, press statement that he gave, he said, and we know that you are hiding in plain sight. So now we have three terminologies: in plain sight, shock and awe, and it's all about power. Okay? So now we know that when they talk about it's all, you're in plain sight, that means in the FBI's terminology that he is a serial killer. So he's a serial killer, he's in plain sight, and now it's all about power. Now, when Carter says it's all about power to you, we know it's all about power to you. Now, here, this is the motive for the crime. He's a serial killer, and it's all about power to him. And then Sergeant Holman says that it's shock and awe here. So this tells us he's a serial killer, the motive's about power, and now shock and awe tells us that the killer positioned the bodies. He posed the bodies. So now we know it's a serial killer, it's all about power is the motive, and that he posed the victims at the murder scene site. BG here is a monster, a man without a conscience that is a monster who killed these girls, the Delphi girls. BG is a monster without a conscience. So now we know here BG's a serial killer and that he has posed the bodies, and the motive here is all about power. This gives us insight into who BG is and about the crime. This is a little message to Bridge Guy, BG. We will never, never, never stop looking for you until the day that we find you. We will find you. God wins. God always wins here. Justice is coming. Justice is coming for Abby and Libby. And we will find you, BG. Justice is coming. Sources of information here include Incognito Society's video, Fact versus Fiction, John Kelly's video here, The Long Island Killer, Wikipedia over shock and awe. These are sources that you can check out in regards to this video.